this with a discussion of the free radical model, talk about how antioxidants function to absorb free radicals. Then we're going to identify the epidermal antioxidants which are active. And from that, we're going to talk about a study hypothesis that which I have been working on in the last 8 years. So particularly, we're going to focus on the treatment of and results of treatment of photoaging, non-melanoma skin cancer, and as a new photoprotection model. So the first thing I want to talk about is something that's an absolutely fascinating experiment that many of you probably know. And that is Pennell, who's the world's vitamin C expert, did an interesting experiment. He took a biopsy from the buttocks of an 80-year-old patient, stuck it on a petri dish and said, let's watch it grow, and the answer is it didn't, and that doesn't surprise any of us. So then in the other petri dish, he put skin from a newborn foreskin, and he saw, sure enough, it grows exuberantly. So the brilliance of the experiment is that he then took the 80-year-old buttock skin, added vitamin C, and saw that in fact what happened is it grew more collagen than the newborn skin. So what that tells us is that collagen growth is an inducible phenomenon, and it's the basis of most of the things that we try and do in dermatology these days, and that is to grow collagen to produce permanent repair. So now we're going to go and talk about the free radical. So what's happened in free radicals is, for years and years, approximately 30 years, we were very focused on the effect of UVB, producing skin cancer, etc. And what we've discovered is that's not an adequate explanation. So the new explanation for what's happening is the release of free radicals. So what we know is, in the free radical model, one photon of light striking the skin produces a chemical reaction which releases one free radical. Antioxidants, which normally occur in skin, absorb free radicals. So if we look and see what are the epidermal antioxidants that are available to us, that'll be on the next slide. Sorry, keep going. Next slide. And one more slide. So the epidermal antioxidants which naturally occur are first vitamin A, which is retinoyl palmitate, vitamin C, and vitamin E. So all three vitamins. And if you look and see where are these active, where in the cell do these exert their effect, and vitamin A is in the nucleus, vitamin C is in the aqueous phase of the cell, and vitamin E occurs on the cell membrane. So what we are trying to do is to enhance inherent levels of antioxidants to increase protection. So the first thing you have to do to look at is to say, what happens when you apply these molecules, and how can you choose a form of the molecule which is the most absorbable? So here are the sort of general rules. Vitamin A, retinoyl palmitate, occurs as 1 to 2%. Vitamin C is a very important molecule, and it has very specific requirements. That is, that it be presented in an acid pH. It must be in the L form. So you remember your chemistry, there's D and L. So if you provide pure L, that's the one which is physiologically active. And the maximum strength or the maximum effect occurs at a vitamin C of 20% concentration. The third one is vitamin E. Burke recently has identified that the active molecule of vitamin E is D-alpha tocopherol. If you use mixed tocopherols, which is the usual finding in almost every other single product in the world, what it is 16 different molecules. So by using a pure molecule, you markedly reduce the inherent inhibition that occurs with multiple different forms. So if we look at saying, okay, let's take vitamin A, retinoyl palmitate 1 or 2%, and it results in a 100-fold increase in the concentration of retinoyl palmitate in the epidermis. If you apply vitamin C, it increases the stores by 40 times. If you apply topical vitamin E, it increases the stores 10 times. So what that says is skin loves vitamins. So what we've done is we took this basic information and said, okay, what happens if we present 3 antioxidants at once? So as you know, there are a whole world of experts on vitamin A and retin A. There's a world of experts on vitamin C and vitamin E. So what we did is said, okay, let's supplement all 3 at once. And we did it in 3 different ways. The first is that we looked at its effect in treatment of photoaging. The second is we looked at the frequency of actinic keratoses and malignancies. And the third is we looked at it as a photoprotective agent. So what we found in our first study, an open-label prospective trial, so that is 300 patients going through my office, normal folks, 300 patients over 5 years treated daily. This is the particular mixture, is vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E. And what you see is dramatic. Within the first couple of weeks, you see an epidermal smoothing, which is very typical of patients who are being treated with retinoids. By 4 months, there's a 50% reduction in the actinic lintinol. Where this regime really kicks in is when you see that 6-month mark. And what's happening clinically is they're beginning to develop thickening of the lip border. So as most of you know, the most difficult problem in cosmetic medicine is the lips. And what you see is that by 6 months, 80% of patients can feel a thickening of that vermilion border. At the same time, it's heralding collagen growth over the whole face. So you start to see a reduction in the fine lines and deep lines. And in our experience, that process, collagen growth detectable by reduced lines, goes on for a period of at least 3 years. The other little neat thing in our study is, because it's a long-term prospective study, is we started to see improvement in the laxity of skin by 3 to 5 years. So the next study that we performed was also an open-label prospective trial of 50 patients, all of whom have severe chronic actinic damage. These are not your normal patients. These are the guys who are called train wrecks. That is, they appear in your office with 50 actinic keratoses at a time. They have 2 or 3 skin malignancies a year. So most of these patients are about the age of 70 or more. They were treated with the same regime daily. And what we saw after about 6 months was a marked reduction in the frequency of actinic keratoses and of skin cancers. So the third area that we looked at takes a little bit of basic science. And that is, what we're going to do is we're going to look at solar energy. And we're going to say, oh, what happens when sunlight hits the skin? What type of sunlight is actually hitting it? And we find out that UVA and UVB account for about 7% of solar energy. And this has been the entire focus of the entire industry of sunscreens, is that 7%. If you look down, you see visible light has really 39% of the energy, and infrared has 54% of the energy. What's really important in terms of dermatology thinking is, in the last 3 years, we've started to realize, oh, most of the free radical production, in fact, occurs from visible light and infrared, not at all covered by sunscreens. So here we have a whole new explanation of why sunscreens aren't as effective as we think they should be. What we know about that particular solar energy is that we can demonstrate dermal penetration of UVA, visible light, and infrared. And what that means is the reason for the dermal changes that are associated with chronic sun damage are that is, they occur primarily from visible light and from near infrared. So if we look at this mixture, what happens when you put retinol palmitate, vitamin C, and vitamin E? Absolutely fascinating. About 3 years ago, Surratt described the fact that vitamin A, naturally occurring molecule in the epidermis, retinol palmitate, in fact, is a sun filter. It's very much like melanin. So here's the missing ingredient. That is, this is the way skin naturally protects itself. So if you rate it, in his studies, he would say that retinoic palmitate has an SPF of about 20. Pinnell has shown us that vitamin C plus vitamin E has an SPF of 24. So what you have when you mix these three together is a agent which has a sunscreen factor of about 24, and it has particularly desirable characteristics. One is it persists, so that when you put vitamin C on the skin, it lasts 4 days. When you put vitamin E and retinoic palmitate on the skin, it lasts 17 days. So the absolute key in the game is to use retinoic palmitate as your vitamin A molecule. These are not water washable, so once they've been on for 10 minutes, you can swim, you can wash your hands, they don't come off. And it covers in a superb spectrum. That is UVB, UVA, visible light, and infrared. And this visible light and infrared is going to become the hot topic in the next 5 years. So then we look and say, V-Radiance, which is the product that we're describing, has very many unique features. First of all, it's the first product which focuses on using retinoic palmitate as a therapeutic agent. So when it's applied in therapeutic strengths, which uniquely we have, that's the effect we get, the ones that we've been describing. Vitamin C, again, needs to be used in very high concentrations. We have the highest concentration in the world, and we provide it at a pH which is entirely appropriate. We're also the first product in the world which uses pure D-alpha tocopherol. And in that, we've added zinc sulfate. So the other unique features of Radiance, what it creates when you use it, is an intercellular sunscreen, which is persistent. It's not water washable. It's the only sunscreen targeted to include visible and infrared light. Those are profoundly important measures in terms of prevention of chronic sun damage. And so this is an agent which is going to be used to prevent, and it's an agent which is going to be used to treat. What it does is it's very clear clinically when you use these molecules, there's a synergy of effect in photoaging. That is, we've all used Retin-A for years. Many of you have used topical vitamin C, but when you add them together, there's a synergy that's absolutely apparent, and particularly in the verbillate border of the lip that we talked about, and in reversing chronic sagging. It also treats intrinsic aging. So extrinsic aging is photoaging, intrinsic aging is natural aging. So retinoic palmitate, go back to chemistry for a minute. When you apply retinoic palmitate at 1%, which is what Radiance contains, 50% is metabolized to retinol. So retinol is otherwise the hottest molecule in dermatology, and it is because Voorhees wrote a paper 2 years ago saying retinol reverses natural aging. The other unique feature of this is certainly its use in the prevention of skin cancer and multiple actinic keratoses. So let's go back and we'll look at the beginning of the lecture and we'll say, what did we discover in discussion? First of all, we talked about how important Pinnell's research is on collagen growth. We talked about the current model of thinking in dermatology, which is the so-called free radical model of injury. We identified antioxidants, which absorb free radicals. We looked and saw, oh, there's 3 epidermal antioxidants, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, that occur naturally. Then we reviewed our study hypothesis, which simply says if you put more on the skin of all these agents simultaneously, what happens? And we looked at photoaging, non-melanoma skin cancers, and then we looked at the solar spectrum and photoprotection. So the sum total is we have a superb product, which in my opinion over a period of time is going to become a universal standard in medicine. This is an absolutely important ultimate discovery that we've made that I've been part of and I've thoroughly enjoyed. And you can guess that the ramifications are very large. So certainly the areas we've talked about are important. But if you think, oh, all of a sudden we have whole new treatments that will cover conditions like acne scarring, lupus, melasma, etc. The future is large indeed. So thank you very much for listening. I'd be most pleased to answer any questions that you have.
Hey Gordon, this is Eric. I actually have a question for you before others might chime in. The Radiant system itself is as you and I know, divided into two separate products. One is a day cream and one is an evening cream. Can you just explain briefly why it's divided into two products and why you have to use both to get maximum results?
Absolutely. What happens is this is a question of chemistry. So it's absolutely imperative that if you're going to use topical vitamin C, it has to occur in an acid pH. So that pH is 3.6 or less. If you do the same thing with retinol palmitate, what you do is neutralize it. So we looked at the problem and we said the best way to do this is to do this as a day cream and a night cream. So that you see the day cream has a pH of 3.6. That is because it contains the 20% vitamin C. And the night cream has the retinol palmitate. So it's simply pH and chemistry.
Thank you so much. That's very clear. The floor is open if anybody else has any questions now. Great, Gordon. I guess you were extremely clear.
I must have been that night, or I or the other.
What I'd like to do in closing, if you'll allow me, is each of you that's been in attendance tonight will get an email from us probably by tomorrow with details on the Radiant system. I think most of you have probably seen it on the website, but we'll give you a lot more detail and let you know pricing and ordering, procedures and how you can integrate this into your practice or your business tomorrow. Just be aware that this system, and I have to tell you, I've used this myself as well as a select population of friends and patients, and it doesn't work overnight. I mean, you will see some results the first couple times you use it, but after hanging with it for up to 6 weeks or so, you will start to see all of those effects that Dr. Telford has brought to us tonight. And especially if you can educate your patients into, viewing this as a long-term treatment regime, what they will see over 6 months, a year, and beyond that is as amazing as any single product that I've ever seen. So with that, let's close out. Unless you have anything else, Gordon.
No, other than happy to answer any questions if some have come up.
Great. Nope. And as usual, within about 2 days or so, this webinar has been recorded and will be available on our website, as they all are. So if you know people that didn't get a chance to attend tonight, or you want to forward the link to them, this is great stuff, and it will help change your practice and benefit the lives of all of your patients and clients. So thank you for attending again. Let's close out, and as usual, you'll get notifications on upcoming webinars on other products and subjects, which will probably be coming within the next 1 to 2 weeks. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Eric.
You bet.